Hello and welcome to my podcast. This time around, I am recording an episode right around the new year. It is the 31st of December 2019, and tonight we have the New Year's resolution or New Year's party. And this time around, I'm actually in Berlin, so we're going to walk toward the Brandenburger Tor and we'll see what parties there, but mostly just for the, I don't know, midnight celebration to kind of like be around where there are people and have something interesting happen around. Um, but I guess the party itself isn't really that interesting, or it's at least not the most interesting part for myself. For myself, the new year is always mostly about just how am I going to do the next year. And I am aware that you can do this whenever you choose to. You can do anything any time of the year. There's no real reason to do it at the end of a year or the beginning of the year, if whether it's in August, September, or in April. You can make goals and set resolutions whenever you choose it fits your life. And maybe some life changes will spark that inspiration. However, the new year is one of those points in time where it is kind of convenient to go over the last year and think about what has happened, what is going to happen, and how you want to step forward into that experience. I mostly like the time between Christmas and New Year's exactly for that purpose, to sit back and relax, journal, have a cup of tea, and think about, daydream about what the new year will bring, as well as reflecting on what the last year has brought. The interesting thing is, like, we set out to do that here in Berlin for the days between Christmas and New Year's, from like the 27th on until the 2nd of January. And the interesting thing is that now, if you've seen my last video on YouTube, I mostly spent my time photographing things at this apartment, trying to sell them, trying to make memories, also thinking about what I might want to keep, what families members might want to keep, and those kind of things. So my time hasn't exactly been spent the way that I would have liked it to be spent in terms of reflecting and visualization of the next year. So this brought me to a little bit of a point where I feel like I might just have to, I don't know, create my resolutions early next year instead of rushing them now, and just pushing forward and just pushing for goals, or making a list of things that I might not really have fully thought through, fully felt into, fully discovered whether or not this is actually what I want to be doing. Now, I still want to talk about one specific aspect that has been on my mind for the last couple of weeks, and that is setting goals that are kind of outlandish and that you may not even think possible yourself. And I have a couple of thoughts about this, and also in terms of like just what my outlandish goal is, like what I am thinking about. So to kind of like give you a little bit of a baseline here, um, I would say the last year was really, really good in terms of a reflective phase toward the beginning and first half of the year, also with a relationship going on at the time, or not going on. Like, that time was really interesting. I spent a lot of time journaling, reflecting, also learning about different methods and just spiritual practices. So that was really, really interesting. And then going from there to the later half or the later quarter or third, I would say I focused mostly on getting an apartment, trying to set myself up to have an environment in which I can create, where I can spend time doing the things that I set out to do in early 2019, actually, which is to create YouTube videos, to create a podcast, as well as online courses with Skillshare and or other methods. So that's kind of like all come to fruition to some degree, where now I do have that apartment. Now I do have my own designated space for this type of thing, but it's not. Um, it hasn't gone into gear yet. And I would say that that's kind of like where I am going to transition into 2020 with this thought that now it's time to take this into effect, to take what I created, to take the setup that I now have for myself and take this vision forward and utilize most everything to the best degree possible. And this also includes having my desk set up, having my ultra wide monitor that I bought early 2019, the switch to Canon where I can see myself while I'm filming myself, the podcasting equipment for interviews. And I've tried that a couple of times and I really like it, so that I want to continue with that. And also the setup of the studio in terms of soundproofing the room and getting rugs and putting them on the floor, as well as the ceiling, not just the ceiling knot, but the walls that I changed. So all of those things are now set into place, and now it's the perfect time to start grinding that out and grinding with those tools and using them, sharpening my knife, so to speak. And so that's kind of like the setup that I have built for myself and not fully used yet. So that's kind of like where I'm at. And now the question becomes, with all of this, like, I have had the goal to create more content multiple times in my life, and sometimes I did, where, for example, with the 365 challenges of photography that I did a couple of years ago, with the 100 days of daily vlogging that I did about 2 years ago now. So, like, all those things kind of like they were in process, but nothing has really stuck to the degree that I would say that I could build on top of it. Now, I am really grateful for the 895 people that have chosen to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and also to the people that are listening to this specific format in terms of the podcast. I really love the connection with the comments and the feedback that I'm getting, as well here, as well as on my newsletter, where I sometimes send out an email with more personal updates, as well as an overview of what has been going on and which content pieces I produced. So if you're interested in any of those things, the links are always in the show notes, as well as the description in my YouTube videos. But generally speaking, I love those connections. I love the view counts, the subscriber counts. I really enjoy the comments that I'm getting and that I can respond to. And also the Skillshare experience has been really good so far. And it just has been limited based on my ability to produce content on the regular basis, and also to kind of like still keep going forward with that, and pushing more into that direction. And sometimes I'm held back because of different fears, and I've talked about that in past videos as well. Now, with the new year coming around the corner, I want to set myself up for something lofty, something to really drive toward, where I can say, yes, this is one of those goals where it's almost out of reach and it kind of sounds totally crazy. But if I dedicate my year to this, if I dedicate time and effort into this, and I'm really serious about it, I probably can do this. And it's so that most of the goals that we can set for ourselves, they have been achieved by others, some of them even with worse circumstances or harder circumstances than we have ourselves. So why not me? Thinking about this goal, or this idea of a goal, it always kind of makes me jittery. It brings up a certain fear response, a respect of it. Because basically, kind of like what I have been thinking about the last I don't know, 6 weeks or so, was how fast would it be possible for me to get to a level where I have 100,000 euros worth of savings. And this is granted that at the moment of the recording of this video, I have a total net worth of about 4,000 euros. And this is counting pretty much everything that I can imagine. And the hard part is that with my recent addition of the apartment here in Germany, I actually increased my expenses. And so, in terms of income and expenses, like there's not really that much room for savings. I'm not in a place where I can save 2,000, 3,000 euros every single month right now. And then the question becomes like, why on earth would I choose a goal like that? Maybe I should just choose 10,000 euros by the end of the year, which already would be an improvement over the previous years and something to really be happy with. But the funny thing is that in different books and different resources over the years, I've read different anecdotes and sayings around that topic where it says it doesn't really matter whether you want to make 10,000 or 100,000 euros. The number in terms of like how big it is only changes the approach that you have to get there, but the work itself is not necessarily harder. So that's one thought, is that the work itself may not be more or less depending on whether you choose 10, 15, 20, 50, or 100,000 or a million. It's a matter of where do you put your attention? And then, of course, you have principles like the 80-20 rule, the Pareto's law, I think it's called, where it says that 20% of the effort produce 80% of the results. And then you start thinking about these concepts where how can I get to my goal and what are aspects that are actually limiting me to achieving this goal, limiting me to stepping forward and moving closer to this goal. What 20% do I need to do for the 80% of the results? For me, some of the thoughts that come to mind are is it worth even bothering about Instagram likes or Instagram posts or Instagram story posts? Is it worth bothering creating a podcast versus YouTube videos? And then again, is it even worth bothering creating YouTube videos when I can create consulting or Skillshare classes? So it's kind of tricky to really put your attention on certain things when you think about this, but at the same time, it refocuses yourself on the important aspects that will eventually move you closer to the goal. Now, of course, it's not really guaranteed that any of these steps will get you to the goal. And maybe it's also one of those things that you want to do all of them at the same time because maybe one of them gets you to the goal quicker or eventually, and others won't. So you may choose the wrong thing if you choose just one of them to focus on. But at the same time, it is kind of obvious that probably if you spend more attention on one of those things, it may actually reap more benefits. And you probably noticed that I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you out there, because for me, it is the same struggle again and again. Do I want to watch YouTube videos? Do I want to create them? Do I want to share something on Instagram? And is it important to put attention and focus there? Or should I just let myself and let my brain run freely into the YouTube video world and create those content pieces? Over the last year, I think even I've seen Matt Diavella, if I'm not mistaken, do a social media cleanse and a social media fast. And one of his expectations was that he would grow slower because of it, because he thought that if he's not active on Instagram and Twitter, then people won't really like his stuff as much or they won't share it as much. And the interesting thing was that because of that, he said that it felt like he was creating more or better content for his main product, which is his YouTube channel. And by doing so, he actually gained more followers. He actually gained more reach with his main product. And I can't really get around saying or thinking that this is probably something that it's probably something that's really hard to see if you grew up with social media and the internet. But considering that most people in the world don't really rely on social media and haven't relied on social media ever, so it's really new. But at the same time, it feels so goddamn addictive to me, at least. And like, it's so important to be present on those platforms. And then we have people that have 1,000 followers, but they have a huge book deal because they just poured everything into writing the best book they could, and an editor actually found that out. Now, of course, there's something to be said that social media will give you a platform if you don't get it otherwise, but sometimes, maybe for me, it feels like it could be deprecating my quality of work that I can do. So, this is something that comes as a result of the considerations of, like, how would I have to behave? How would I have to change my life, my approach, my task list? How can I achieve something that I myself think that it is possible, but at the same time there's a huge part in myself that's kind of in disbelief of that. And I'm even now, as I'm recording this episode, I am not 100% sure what do I want to put onto this idea of 100,000 in savings. Do I want to make their time goal? Do I want to say like 100,000 by the end of 2020? Do I want to say like how fast can I reach how fast can I reach 100,000? Is it just an open goal to eventually have 100,000 in savings, which isn't all that crazy, because I think that that's something that everybody should probably get like at some point. But yeah, just making that final decision, trying to weave my way through creating the vision for 2020, creating an idea for what it could look like, how I can achieve it eventually, how I can go through all the steps and get to a point where I want to be at the end, where I can feel good about myself, but I also can look at my bank account and say, yes, I have achieved a certain level of something. Like, it's not necessarily success, but a certain level of freedom, which is something that I associate with having a certain level of money on my in my disposal or at my disposal. It's not to boast, but it's to have freedom to work on the ideas and the project that I want to be working on, to be able to be in the locations that I want to be in, and those kind of things. Yeah, I just think that I want to leave you with this thought experiment for yourself. It's like, what is a goal for 2020 that you can look for, that you've always maybe dreamt of? Maybe it's something completely new, maybe it's something that you've been thinking about for years. And to kind of like put that into your vision, think about how you can incorporate it, how you can get there, what steps do you need to take, how you may be able to change your approach, your task list, your priorities. How can you adjust to accommodate that goal and to solidify the path toward it? Like I said, for myself, with uh, saving 100,000 euros, I would say a couple of the approaches that I probably will have to take is cutting back on the consumption of content, no matter where it is, be it Twitter, be it movies, be it Instagram, and also YouTube itself. And then focusing on the creation of content, being less apologetic, being less fearful, being more outgoing and presenting my ideas, my thoughts, my knowledge, sharing those things on Skillshare, advertising them, and then just creating more in general with a certain structure. So that's another thing that also comes into the mix, where I just today heard something from Gary Vaynerchuk where he said, if you choose, like, if you are building a business and you choose to hang out with friends a lot or play different hobbies at the same time, and doing all those things at the same time as building your business, then maybe you should just reality check yourself and your expectation as to how fast you want to grow that business. Because if you have 15 priorities in your life, all of them will progress, but they are all going to progress a little slower. You of course can adjust for that, and you can try to make adjustments along the way. You may be able to outsource certain work so that it goes faster anyways, even though you're not spending the time on it yourself. But overall, someone who is able to dedicate 100% of their attention toward making good content is going to be outperforming someone who is watching tons of YouTube videos and sometimes in between creating something. And they're also going to outproduce someone who has a lot of fear in terms of what do other people expect, or how will I be perceived if I actually end up publishing something. So again, to kind of like wrap around this, for me, it's going to be kind of like choosing what I am going to consume, as well as choosing what I want to create, stepping away from the fears of being as perfectionistic as I think that I need to be, just putting something out there, even if it's not polished or perfect, as well as just rearranging my priorities in terms of which 20% are going to yield 80% of the results. And maybe that means that I have to cut back on creating a podcast. Maybe that means cutting back on creating Instagram stories at all, and simply just stepping toward YouTube and Skillshare, for example, as my main priorities next to my client work, which helps me to sustain all of the living expenses that I have. So, yeah, have fun creating a vision for yourself if you haven't done that already. Have fun taking that and cutting it into pieces of actionable tasks and actionable steps that you can take one by one toward whatever goals you set for yourself. And just enjoy the process as you are moving through everything and starting this new decade with a new a new powerful vision for yourself and for your life, whenever that may be. Because again, you can always make your goals in February, April, June, it doesn't really matter. You can do this whenever you see fit, and it just is convenient to do it when the year switches from 2019 to 2020. And with that said, I truly hope you had an amazing year, and I hope you're making it your life next year with your vision, with your ideas, with your goals, and with everything that you see for yourself. And yeah, go out there, create, make it happen. And I see you in 2020 with lots more to come. Ciao, ciao.